local who could speak the lingo, interpreters, and we went to recce. We didn't know what it was for then, but I do now. We went to recce the observation drops behind the jet lines.
Really?
We had to walk 150 miles in 10 days. It was jungle walking where
You landed.
leeches were that big. We used to walk Indian file because you could pick off the leeches off the local pump. And we did it, and he got into one village one night.
It's run out of water.
4 days walking.
Can you manage?
The head man came rushing up and hung us into one of these pagoda things way up on the sort of side. The Japs were being entertained at the other end of the village, but they didn't want to give the game away. Because they didn't want to even know that Brits were that far in the jungle to let them know where the drops were going to be even.
The people you had with you, they were just translators, or the people, the guides, they were...
Well, the guys were, they were native guys. They didn't get, they got seconded most probably, they got army bits and pieces for them, but they were not under military rule. They used to cook for us and do that. In fact, I had a chap with me, who was one of my subsection, he got it mentioned too. And the one village we got to, there was an old boy there, he's covered in bloody disease, it was, spots and bits. And now he was our first aid chap with us, and he had to look at him, and he had some Germaline. Have you heard of Germaline?
Yeah, I remember,
We got that on this guy. By the time we came back, it was all healed. They made us what they call a ram sammy. That was a sort of a party, which is, they have the head man of the village has it, and all get all the rice and the chickens and the stuff come in. And we went, and the old officer sat on a single chair, and I was on the next chair to him, like barrasounds we were. They entertained us.
Wow. but
they were wonderful. But they used to, Japs would steal the goods, but we didn't do that. We used to bring them things.
So each one was using all the villages for their own means.
Yes, but it was a terrible war. I mean, it was a jungle warfare. There was no such thing. In fact, we had, in the early days with jeeps, we used to have what they call a jury axle. The wheelbase had to be narrowed because of jungle passes. So and then the 25-pounders had to be narrow as well, so they could take them up mountain passes.
So you were landed on the coast and you worked away?
I didn't have to land on the coast. I landed in 1940. I was in Burma when we were at peace. There was no war on Japan then, and we landed at Bombay. You been to Bombay?
No, never been there.
It took me 6 weeks to get out there. I went by Cape Town, and Sierra Leone was our first port of call when we left Gurok.
Oh, that's what's now Sri Lanka, is it? Or,
well, it was on that coast. Bit of trouble out there at the moment.
Sri Lanka,
We had bumboatmen, we had the bum. You never went abroad, did you?
No,
I don't know, really South End.
Sierra Leone's Madagascar.
You went to South End?
Catching as far as I know.
The tea was better there, no doubt.
Funny going out, I was a PT instructor on board the Strathmore, 35,000 tonnes. I was on up on A deck.
Really?
They hadn't been converted to troop ship yet. Still iced water on A deck.
Yeah.
I was still a cruise ship.
They even took a ship from France, which was the Louis Pasteur, which only had was being built there, and only had one funnel, hadn't put the other one on yet.
Yeah.
We nipped across and towed it back and pulled it back into our side, and she was used as a troop ship.
Yeah.
But we had to keep her going. The convoy went to the slowest ship in the convoy because she couldn't go quicker.
So you all knew where you were going. You knew you destined
didn't
to
know.
go.
We thought we were going to America because when we left Scotland, we went 3 days what's her name, west. You see, each day we lost an hour. So we thought, that's good, we're going to the States. Then after 3 days he made a sharp left. He went down behind the Cape of Good Hope.
Just to not...
And then we found out there was a helmet room there. We thought, so that would be going to Iceland, would it? Went to Burma. Helmet room, one room, especially with all helmets. And
well, there's some pith helmets or still?
Sort of bandana. We never got issued with those until we got ashore.
You had pith helmets,
Then we had khaki drill navy, that was on board the ship. We had free access. Being an NCO, we had sort of mess quarters, which was quite good. But the lads down on H deck, the boys were having a puff and doing the toilets down there, blocked up the latrines. Every day there was an inspection,
On board the ship?
Every day there was an inspection that used to be done.
I definitely never went abroad, but getting on a big troop ship was always, I regarded that as being an experience I could do without, big troop ship.
So how long did you end up staying?
I was away for 5 years.
5 years?
We got married in 1940. I didn't see my wife until 5 years later.
Really? You married Susan before you went there?
Married in 1940.
About 2 months before, wasn't it?
Married in February.
Yeah.
They gave me leave because of being just married. I left in May, May 40. then I went into Woolwich, and as soon as we got into Woolwich, they took me to the gym. The first thing, I was doing back somersaults and handsprings.
Woolwich Arsenal.
I used to be sort of going to the Oxford and St George's Jewish Club, and I was sent to the Lucas Tooth Institute to be an instructor for PT.
Lucas, up in Scotland?
Physical training.
Lucas or?
Lucas Tooth.
Oh, Lucas Tooth.
And then, in those days, if you were an evening institute instructor, you got 7 and 6pence an hour, 15 shillings for 2 hours. And the bankman only got about £4 a week. So I would, well, if you were trained and qualified, but then I didn't finish the course because I found out there was girls and dancing. So I packed it all in, but it hadn't stopped me doing my handsprings and somersaults. And when I got in the gym after the first day, I'm in the corner doing a handspring, somersault, you know, staff they called them, you know, staff instructors. They were
Staff
with the cross swords in the banana, you know, you ever seen PTI? Yeah, cross swords.
But you had 3 sets of the crown.
Yeah.
3 takes, yeah.
So he said to me after he says, he called me, right, Sunshine, he says, I want to see you after the meet. So then he calls me in and the RSM saw me, he says, right, you'll go to a course to Aldershot. I said, when is it, sir? He told me, I said, I can't go. He said, why? Because it's Jewish holidays. I had to go back to shul.
That's really,
so he told me in good old English what he thought of me, but he left his mark. But they gave me stripe anyway, and once you've got a stripe, you can, I used to take them on PT, and then kept right, they say, yeah, Mum and Nick, can't we go for a run? I said, yeah, we used to nick them off out the front gate at Woolwich, Shoebury Nest, at Woolwich as well. I used to shoot them all out.
It was a long range,
sea range.
Sea range,
Used to
I think it still is.
I used to have a black and red jersey, you know, in those days. I don't know what you had.
Well, same thing, black and red, PTI.
I've still got the stills, cross swords and stuff. When I was in Burma, I was in charge of the gun as well.
Yeah.
I was a super company quartermaster sergeant. I was in charge of the bits and pieces. That's the best job in the army.
What, an artillery gun?
Quartermaster.
Okay.
It's the best job.
Yeah.
Gets all the stores.
Well, when I got demobbed, they came up to me and said, sign on. They always try to sign on. And if you sign on, we'll get you trained, turn you into formal signals, which was three tapes and a crown.
As an incentive to stay.
I still do, yeah.
Raw core of pigs.
Yeah.
Well, in those days we used to run the line out. I don't know what you had. We used to run the line to the radio.
We used to stick
to bury the line.
I was once on a scheme in Salisbury Plain, and we laid 3 or 4 miles of that, which is a long way to lay a cable, mainly feeding it out from behind a slow-moving truck. And then when we done it, the so-called enemy went and cut it.
Were you a good soldier? Or not? Were you a good soldier, or you wasn't as good a soldier, or you should have been?
No one's ever as good as they should have been.
Well, I was told I was the best civilian soldier that my regiment had. So I was a PT instructor.
I was
a drill instructor.
I was the best military civilian they had.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to.
I must admit, you know,
I used to take the drills like.
Parade ground drills. Yeah. Really.
I was on the Durbar. I was right hand man in the front rack when Wavell became the governor of India at that time.
Yeah, I used to think you were there after the war. It's in effect.
That was before the war. That was because governor before he got that. He wasn't at war yet.
What about Wingate? You had contact with him?
Well, I didn't see him personally, but it was a shock when he heard his plane crashed and he died.
You didn't have any connection?
He was a different bloke. He didn't have any bull, you know, there was no mucking about.
You know that they reckon that his ideas were the foundation of the Israeli army?
Yeah. And Diane,
they had the Entebbe film on the other day.
Yeah, he was a different type of element, you know.
Yeah, he was
looked
a guerrilla.
At war through, it's like ordinary shops, and then they had the supermarket shops, you know.
Yeah.
All that becomes a sort of a different thing.
Yeah.
And it was so clever, but then eventually they towed them in gliders, you know, the Americans. Without the Americans, we could never have done much. They used to get